Life Stories Live.
Hello, my name's Bill Keith. This is Life Stories Worldwide, and we have a guest that's going to be sharing his story. This is Mike Kress from San Francisco. He's a money manager, wealth builder in the San Francisco area. He does business throughout the United States and around the world. And Mike, I'm just going to go right ahead and turn it over to you, and feel free to share your life story.
Thank you. It all started with me along the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh, in a place called Verona, Pennsylvania. And I grew up in a Lutheran household. We had to go to church in my family. I mean, even if my uncle was out all night drinking, he still showed up at church before he went home and went to bed. My grandfather was very tough. They were in the trucking business, and they worked dark to dark. And if it wasn't for them working so hard, they would have been out of business long ago. And I personally didn't like that business a lot. I was drawn to a game called golf. And at 11, I hitchhiked out to the golf course to try to earn money because I really liked money. And my dad belonged to this golf course about 3 miles away. And when he found out, he said, "Mike, wait till you're 12. He said, when you're 12, we can get you to caddy at the golf course down the street from us." And so I waited. Next summer, he took me down there and introduced me to the caddy master. And I was off and running, $250 a bag. And I was thrilled. I couldn't work enough. I was the first one there and the last one to leave. And then on Caddy's Day, there were a lot of African American caddies, and they decided that they would like to try to beat me out of some of my money playing golf. And my dad had dragged me out to the golf course, and I was just sort of wandering around like Ferdinand the Bull, smelling the roses. And I wanted to hunt golf balls and sell them to him so I could make some money. But when the caddies tried to beat me out of my money playing golf, the light went on. All of a sudden, I could see the shape of the shot. And they'd play $2 every 3 holes. And you had to put the money in the golf bag. So it was an exciting time. And my dad was kind of impressed with my progress at golf. And so he eventually challenged another father and son team. I was 12, my dad was 35. The other son was 30, and the father was about 70. And we beat him out of $110 playing golf. And then we went in and played him gin rummy and beat him out of another $110. So I was ruined for the straight life. And it was just golf and gambling of any kind. I liked the risk. I told my dad, I said, "Dad, let's put this money in the bank." I had a few $100s. He said, "Son, in our family, we buy stock." So I bought a stock when I was 12, and I bought one when I was 15. And by the time I got out of college, one had tripled and one had quadrupled. And I said, wow, this is, they only had 2 finance courses at the college I went to. So I majored in accounting. And when I found out I didn't have to be an accountant, that I could go to Wall Street, I was just fascinated. But I had a little problem. The Vietnam War was going on at the time, and you couldn't do much without getting your military out of the way. So I joined a medical unit, became a clerk typist in a medical unit, reserve unit. And when I came back, I knew I could get a job as a broker because I had been offered one before the military was out of the way. And off to Wall Street I went, and they trained you for a year in those days, and it was exciting. I mean, I watched a guy buy a stock at and this is in 1967. I watched him buy 10,000 shares of a stock that went to 180, and that same guy would have been bankrupt if it wasn't for a tax shelter he bought that got very exciting for him in 1974. And so I was on this quest to get rich. I went back to Pittsburgh, and this is a time when the birth control pill was available for the first time, and we men thought we were capturing all these women, but I'm not sure in hindsight that they weren't capturing us. But I certainly wasn't abiding with the Lord. It was greed and lust and alcohol, and I still played golf. But I'm back in Pittsburgh, and we had a house with 7 bedrooms, and sometimes we'd have 5, 6 people, and would split that rent equally. And it was a beautiful old house. And
Life Stories.
would have huge parties, and it was it was a fun time from a worldly point of view, but certainly no spiritual growth. And then in 1969, I decided that the guys on Wall Street that I trained with were doing much better with much fewer accounts. So back to Wall Street I went. And I went with another fellow, and he was in the search business. And I just got a call last week from my secretary from 40 years ago. wanting me to become his power of attorney. He married my secretary. I was his best man twice, but his marriages didn't last very long. And so I'm trying to get rich. In 72, I think I got it all together. It's just a matter of time till I become a millionaire. And in 72, I had joined the New York Athletic Club, a golf course called Wingfoot, which is, a U.S. Open golf course. And I was just, I was kind of full of myself and off the charts. And then all of a sudden, 73 and 74 hit, and the market went down 66% in 2 years. And I personally had no clue. I bought a tax shelter in 72, and those write-offs let me keep my head above water. My tax refunds helped, and then in 75, the market, the Wall Street was changing so rapidly. I met a cute young Chinese girl playing volleyball. We felt like we went through all the women in New York City, so we had to go to New Jersey to look for some new women. And we had a big 4-door Lincoln Continental, and we loaded our volleyball team in the car. We drank beer for 2 hours before we left New York City, and we filled up the beer bazooka on our way to New Jersey. And there happened to be one Chinese girl playing volleyball, and I had never been with a Chinese girl, and I went for her like a dart. She couldn't get away from me. And I talked her into driving into New York City to go out with me. And after we went out about 5 times, she said, those classes that you think I teach, she said, I attend them. And it turns out that she was a college student, and I thought she was a school teacher because she was the assistant gymnastics coach. So she was 18 and I was 31, but it didn't seem to bother her, and it didn't seem to bother me. And she thought I was kind of schizophrenic. I'd drink beer all night and then want to get up and go see Norman. So it was a different time. It was I had gone from going to be a millionaire to owing $180,000, and I got a job offer in San Francisco, and I just couldn't figure out why I shouldn't come. I went. The industry was changing so rapidly. I mean, it was just, and I knew I needed a change of some sort. And I talked my Chinese girlfriend into coming out and visiting at Christmas of 75. And we drove across the country in October. And, by the time I got to San Francisco, I was, sober for a while. I was trying to lose some weight, and I knew I was in love with this Chinese girl, and she came out at Christmas, and I talked her into applying to West Coast colleges, and in the summer after coming out at Easter, she moved out here, and the next summer we got married, and that first year of marriage drove me to Jesus. I is the way I tell the short version of the story, but we went to a big Presbyterian church. I thought that I could make some contacts, network a bit, and but I knew we needed something to base our marriage on. And because it wasn't working. She'd explode, but she'd keep everything in, and then about once a month she'd explode and she'd be angry for a week, and it just wasn't going real well. And so I went out and asked people for money for the building fund campaign. And they obviously didn't know me, but I could ask people for money because that's what I did for a living. And so I remember being in a guy's house overlooking a park. Must have been a $2 million house in 1975. And all of a sudden, well, in 1977, it's the year we got married, he's going to give $100 to the building fund. And I'm saying, 100? This guy has all this money and he's going to give $100. And I said, I knew I could get him up to 400 because it was a 4-year commitment they were looking for. And I said, well, they're looking for a 4-year commitment to the building fund. He said, well, I can give it to you $25 a year if you'd rather have it that way. So I was just beside, and the others were worse, the other leads, so, but I didn't know how this building fund stuff worked. I was,
Life Stories Live.
they sent some young lady over to ask me for money. Now, I didn't even like buildings, but she's asking me for money, and I'm such a chauvinist. I don't even have my wife in on this conversation. And I'm thinking, how could you make that much money? How could you owe $180,000? And this marriage doesn't look like it's going too well. I better try something else. And so I told them I would give them $5,000 a year for the building fund. And that just took money off the pedestal and gave me a hunger for the things of God that hasn't changed in all these years. And then, much to my wife's dismay, I went out and borrowed $5,000 more to join a country club because I needed this piece in my business for credibility. I felt if you can play golf a little bit and you can be around people with money, you have a chance to manage some of their money. And so it was a strategic move for me. But gradually, the Lord took that act of giving money, and that act turned my life around, because that hunger for the things of God never quit. I had a couple that adopted my wife and I. They were our spiritual parents. I mean, my wife couldn't pray out loud for about a year, but they decided that I needed the Holy Spirit because regular wasn't going to work for me. I needed some high test. And so they took me over to Oakland, and there were 500 people in this meeting, and I'm standing in line to get baptized in the Holy Spirit. And I did get this little prayer language that developed over time. And I asked the person, I said, well, where's the chapter in San Francisco? If there's 500 people in Oakland, I figured there's 1,000 in San Francisco. And the guy looked at me and said, you're it. So here I was. And they eventually gave me 3 other people, and we started praying for a chapter in San Francisco. And we prayed a chapter into existence. And this was 40 years ago. And we've been in business ever since. We had one period where we went dormant because they needed a guarantee for the lunch. And we don't know if we're going to have 10 people or 30. And so to guarantee 20 seemed reasonable, but when you only had 10, it didn't work real well. And eventually we started up again by a guy from Wales came and fired it up, and we've been going strong ever since. But I remember going to my first men's advance in Silomar, and I get down to a Silomar, and there's I'm a little late, but the sun is setting into the chapel at a Silomar, and those sunbeams are coming in there, and I'm walking in there, and there's 300 men singing "Our God Reigns" with their hands raised. I had never ever seen anything like that in my life, and it was a big day for me, because I still owed $185,000, and I walked out of that meeting, and there was some young guy selling an old guy's book, and the book was called Boom or Bust It. Now, if you can't sell a salesman a book, you can't sell anybody anything. And so I got the book and I read it, and the book was Rhema for me, because it was about getting out of debt. And I gave it to my wife, and she read it, and we held hands and prayed at a labor union convention in Montreal. Labor unions have a lot of money, and I was trying to get some of it. And so we prayed to get out of debt, and we did everything they told us to do. We had this big, broad thing where we listed every ounce of money we spent, and nobody could spend over $100 on anything unless they got consent from their wife. And so it was we pounded out those credit cards one after another. And the next thing I knew, my wife decided that we needed to get this condo. We met this little fellow that on a bus trip to Acapulco for opening new accounts for Smith Barney, and it turned out he worked in Oakland, but he lived across the street from us, and he kept telling my wife about this condo, and there's something about owning something, some real estate, that just, I couldn't stop her. I said, we don't have any money. We have debt. We don't have any money. How are we going to buy a condo? And eventually she had me borrow $40,000 from my dad for the down payment on this condo. And I paid him back. And the next thing I knew, she told me she wanted a house. And I'm out of debt for the first time in my life, and she's telling me she wants a house. Now, even back then, houses cost money in San Francisco. This is 1985, and I was beside myself. I mean, now she wants a house. We got a condo that's beautiful, and she wants a house, and I didn't know what to do. But I was I was still young in the faith, and I saw a guy when I was on the board. I was a trustee at Ohio University, and I was watching Jerry Falwell on TV, and he said he read 5 Psalms a day and 1 proverb. And I'm up to Psalms 34:14. And it says, seek peace and pursue it. And I was leaving the Presbyterian church because I wanted to worship in spirit and in truth. And I felt like they were worshiping in opera and ritual.
Life Stories Live.